Hello, I'm Serenne Kaplan. I'm a clinical psychologist and I'm speaking to you from Johannesburg, South Africa. We've never come face to face with an emotional adversary quite like COVID-19. It has unleashed spikes in anxiety, worry, and panic on a global level. We're living on a knife's edge and our nerves get frayed. It seems like overnight we've inherited an unwelcome new normal where we've lost our moorings, leaving us disorientated, making up the rules as we go along. There's a whole smorgasbord of fear out there, and we have to find ways of cauterizing the anxiety so that it doesn't flood and overwhelm us. This global pandemic is probably the ultimate uncontrollable, bringing an unparalleled level of uncertainty and change. Now, none of us do well with either uncertainty or change. We thrive on feeling that things are predictable and certain, and that's what gives us trust in the world. Now, I believe that there are 3 levels of stress that people are experiencing right now. The first is the universal anxiety around this virus, a stress none of us on the planet are immune to. The second is how it's playing out in our immediate personal space. Whether it's massive economic anxiety, worries about our elderly parents living alone at this time, and then there's the third, which is the climate in our heads. Now, the bad news is that we have 0 jurisdiction over the first, besides adhering to stringent protocols to protect ourselves as best we can. We also have limited control over number 2. Now, the good news is that when it comes to number 3, the emotional temperature in our heads, here we have 100% sovereignty. We are challenged now, more than ever before, to organize our internal world in healthy ways if we're to come out of this tunnel okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is our emotional responses to what's going on. Emotions are our signposts, and they cannot be muted, and nor should they be. They tell us when everything's not all right. This is a time where we have to be emotionally agile and do a personal audit, tracking what we're feeling. Just like we've had to up our game with our physical hygiene, we have to sharpen our pencil in practicing emotional hygiene. Emotions need motion. We are hardwired for connection, and social distancing doesn't equal social disconnection, nor should lockdown mean lock out. This is a time to reach out. Our digital age is custom made for this. While we can't be together, we can keep connecting. This is a survival technique. It is an essential anchor that will scaffold us when we need it most. Now, during this time, many of us are experiencing trauma, which happens when we feel helpless and out of control. Our evolutionary protective mechanisms of fight, flight, and freeze kick in when we feel under threat. These are normal reactions to an abnormal experience, but none of these serve us well at this time, and we have to resist the urge not to get reactive, which is the fight, to withdraw, which is the flight, or to become immobilized, which is the freeze. With this pandemic, we have to give ourselves and people around us a vulnerability permission slip to talk about our feelings. So reach out, call a friend or family member, and do it often. Now, change and loss run together. You can't have one without the other. For many of us, this uneasy, uncomfortable feeling is grief. Our hearts are breaking for all the losses we're confronting. We have experienced wholesale losses, a medium-term future that's suddenly been cancelled. Besides the catastrophic loss of lives, there have been other softer but painful losses of milestone experiences, graduations, long-awaited reunions with loved ones, family events that have been postponed indefinitely, hundreds of disappointments and separations, and there's no hierarchy in loss, both on a micro and a macro level. We're also experiencing what we call anticipatory grief. We know the storm will get worse. There's something bad out there, but we can't see it or quantify it, nor do we have a timeline on it. Now, there are 3 zones that I'm seeing people going into at this time. The first is the black zone, where we are full of doom and gloom. Our mood dips and we feel pessimistic and fatalistic. The second is very common, where we visit the red zone. Here we feel crippled by panic, by anxiety and fear, where we imagine the worst, terrorizing ourselves about what might be. Now, one sure way to ramp up our anxiety and add to our stress pot is to overdose on news and social media. Overexposure reactivates our stress response and doesn't allow our brains to switch off, exhausting our inner resource tank. The third zone is the white zone, which we have to aim for. Here, we might expect the worst, but we plan for the best. We do self-surveillance, staying calm, which right now is pretty much your superpower. If you're a couple, you might start having conversations you haven't had in years. You have the opportunity to flip this terrifying narrative on its head and be a lighthouse to others, trying to find the hidden gifts that this time brings. Mother Teresa said it a long time ago. If you want to change the world, go home and love your family. In this zone, we come to realize that there's no growth in comfort zones. And we do a deep cleanse, not only of our household surfaces and sanitizing our hands, but also in regulating our emotions and upgrading our relationships for the better. We need to carve out joyful bliss points in our day for sacred pauses, to pray, to meditate, exercise, or read. These infusions of vitality are the antidote to our panic. Now, we do know that this will pass, and we will be left ultimately with the legacy of who we were or who we became as COVID-19 ransacked our world. We need to take inventory on which zone we've been living in. So be a good custodian of your headspace right now. Decide how you'd like your post-corona story to read. May we all be blessed to come out of this not only with our physical health intact, but our mental health too.